Have you ever been betrayed by the person you loved most? Imagine losing your husband, the love of your life, and then, in your darkest hour of grief, your own daughter sends you a message that shatters what's left of your broken heart. This is the story of Eleanor Hayes, a 72-year-old grandmother who thought she knew what family meant, until the day she became a widow and discovered that greed can turn even a daughter into a stranger. Before we dive into this incredible story, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our daily stories of justice, karma, and life lessons. And hey, I want to know, are you watching this from your phone in bed, on your lunch break, or maybe while you're cooking dinner? Drop a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. Your support means everything to us. Now, let's get back to Eleanor's story, because what happened next will leave you absolutely speechless. Eleanor Hayes had been married to Marcus Hayes for 47 years. 47 years of laughter, tears, struggles, and triumphs. They'd built a life together from nothing. Marcus had started as a construction worker and eventually built his own successful contracting company, while Eleanor had worked as a school teacher, shaping young minds for 3 decades. Together, they'd raised their daughter, Victoria, giving her everything they could. Private schools, college tuition, a lavish wedding. Nothing was too good for their little girl. Marcus had always been a generous man. Sometimes too generous, Eleanor thought. He'd spoiled Victoria rotten, always saying, "She's our only child, Ellie. I want her to have the world." And Victoria had taken full advantage of that generosity. Even as an adult, she'd come to her parents with her hand out, needing money for a new car, for a down payment on a bigger house, for her children's private school tuition. Marcus never said no. Never. Eleanor had tried to talk to him about it over the years. "Honey, we need to let Victoria stand on her own 2 feet," she'd say gently, usually late at night when they were alone in bed. "She's 43 years old. She has a husband. They both have good jobs. Why are we still supporting them?" Part P. Marcus would always smile, pat her hand, and say, "Just a little longer, Ellie. Just until they get really established. I don't want our daughter to struggle the way we did." Part P. But that little longer had stretched on for years. And then, one Tuesday morning in October, Marcus collapsed while working in their garden. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. A massive heart attack. Just like that, the man Eleanor had spent nearly 5 decades with was taken from her in an instant. The funeral was a blur. Eleanor moved through those days like a ghost, accepting condolences, making arrangements, trying to remember to eat and sleep. Victoria had seemed devastated too, crying at the funeral, holding her mother's hand. Eleanor remembered thinking, "At least we have each other. At least I still have my daughter." How wrong she was. 3 days after the funeral, as Eleanor sat in her living room, staring at Marcus's empty chair, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Victoria. Eleanor's heart lifted slightly. Maybe her daughter was checking on her, maybe suggesting they have lunch together. God knew Eleanor could use the company. She opened the message, and her world collapsed all over again. "Mom, I need to be honest with you. Dad's will is being read next week, and I want you to know that Derek and I have consulted with our own lawyer. We don't think it's fair that you should get the majority of Dad's estate. You didn't build that business. Dad did. You were just a teacher. Derek has helped Dad with contracting advice over the years, and frankly, he's been more of a man than you ever were. So don't expect to walk away with everything. You're not getting a single cent if we have anything to say about it." Eleanor read the message 3 times, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Derek was Victoria's husband. a real estate developer who'd always acted like he was doing the Hayes family a favor by marrying their daughter. He was arrogant, condescending, and had always made Eleanor feel small. But she'd tolerated him because he was Victoria's choice, and she loved her daughter. This was unthinkable. Eleanor tried to call Victoria immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. She tried again, and again. Nothing. She sent a text. "Victoria, please call me. We need to talk about this. I don't understand." No response. For the next week, Eleanor barely slept. She'd lie awake at night, replaying the message in her mind, trying to understand how her daughter, the little girl she'd rocked to sleep, whose scraped knees she'd bandaged, whose tears she'd dried, could say such cruel things. "More of a man than you ever were." The words cut deeper each time she remembered them. What did that even mean? Eleanor had worked full-time while raising Victoria, had supported Marcus's dreams, had been there for every milestone, every crisis. The day of the will reading arrived. Eleanor dressed carefully in a simple black dress, her hands still trembling as she buttoned it. She drove to the lawyer's office in downtown Portland, her stomach churning with anxiety. She had no idea what to expect. Marcus had always handled their financial affairs. Eleanor knew they were comfortable. The house was paid off, there was money in savings and retirement accounts, and Marcus's business was successful. But she'd never asked for details. She'd trusted Marcus completely. When she walked into the conference room at Porter & Associates law firm, Victoria and Derek were already there. They sat on one side of the long mahogany table, looking like they owned the place. Derek was wearing an expensive suit and had his arm draped possessively around the back of Victoria's chair. Victoria wouldn't meet her mother's eyes. "Hello, sweetheart," Eleanor said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've been trying to reach you." Victoria finally looked up, her face cold and expressionless. "We've been busy, Mom. Please just sit down. Let's get this over with." Eleanor felt like she'd been slapped. She took a seat on the opposite side of the table, suddenly feeling very alone. Where was her daughter? The girl who used to crawl into her lap and say, "I love you, Mommy," was gone, replaced by this stranger with ice in her eyes. The lawyer, George Porter, was a kind-looking man in his 60s who'd known Marcus for 20 years. He entered the room carrying a thick folder, his expression professionally neutral, though Eleanor thought she saw a flicker of sympathy when he looked at her. "Good morning, everyone," George said, settling into his chair at the head of the table. "I know this is a difficult time, and I'll try to make this as straightforward as possible. We are here for the reading of Marcus Hayes's last will and testament, properly executed and witnessed on June 15th of this year." June. That was only 4 months ago. Eleanor hadn't known Marcus had updated his will so recently. Before George could continue, Derek leaned forward, his voice dripping with false concern. "George, before you start, I think we should address something. My wife and I have some concerns about the validity of this will, particularly if there are any provisions that seem, let's say, influenced by Eleanor during a time when Marcus may not have been thinking clearly." Eleanor's mouth fell open. "What are you talking about? Marcus was perfectly healthy until—" "Was he, though?" Derek interrupted, his eyes narrowing. "Victoria told me he'd been forgetful lately, confused. Who knows what kind of pressure you might have put on him, Eleanor? You always were the manipulative type." Eleanor felt her face flush with anger and humiliation. "That's absolutely not true. Marcus was sharp as a tack right up until the day he died. How dare you suggest—" "Derek, please," Victoria said, though her tone was more placating than reproachful. "Let's just hear what the will says." But she didn't contradict her husband's accusations. She didn't defend her mother. That silence hurt worse than Derek's words. George Porter cleared his throat, his expression hardening slightly. I can assure you both that Marcus Hayes was of completely sound mind when he executed this will. I met with him privately, conducted a thorough assessment, and he was absolutely clear about his wishes. In fact, he anticipated there might be disagreements, which is why he took extra precautions to ensure this document would be ironclad. He looked directly at Derek. Any challenge to this will would be unsuccessful and, frankly, expensive. I'd advise against it. Derek sat back, his jaw clenched, but he said nothing more. George opened the folder and began reading. I, Marcus Theodore Hayes, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament, revoking all previous wills and codicils. The first section dealt with minor bequests, Marcus's golf clubs to his best friend, some tools to his foreman, a few charitable donations. Then George got to the main provisions. To my beloved daughter, Victoria Lynn Hayes Morrison, I leave the following: the sum of $50,000, to be paid from my estate within 30 days of my death. I also leave her the antique writing desk that belonged to her grandmother, and the pearl necklace that she has always admired. $50,000. Eleanor saw Victoria's face go pale. Derek's expression shifted from smug confidence to confusion, then quickly to anger. Wait, Derek said, half rising from his chair. 50,000? That's it? Marcus's business alone is worth at least $3 million. The house, the investments, we're talking about an estate worth probably $5 million. You're telling me his only daughter gets 50 grand and some furniture? George ignored him and continued reading. To my son-in-law, Derek Morrison, I leave the following: nothing. Not out of spite, but because he has made it clear over the years that he needs nothing from me. He has told me repeatedly that he is a self-made man who doesn't need handouts from anyone. I am simply respecting his wishes. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. She remembered those exact words. Derek had said them at a family dinner about a year ago, puffing out his chest and bragging about his success. Marcus had smiled and nodded, but Eleanor had seen something flicker in her husband's eyes. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. Derek's face turned red, a vein pulsing in his forehead. This is ridiculous. I never said. That was taken out of context. You can't. Please, let me finish, George said firmly. The remainder of Marcus Hayes's estate, including the family home at 847 Maple Grove Lane, all bank accounts, investment portfolios, his business, Hayes Contracting, LLC, and any other assets not specifically mentioned are to be left to his wife, Eleanor Marie Hayes, with the following important conditions and explanations. Eleanor's heart was pounding. She didn't care about the money. Not really. She just wanted to understand what was happening. Why had Marcus done this? Why had he cut Victoria out of most of the inheritance? George pulled out another document, this one handwritten. Marcus included a personal letter to be read as part of this will. With your permission, Eleanor, I'll read it now. Eleanor nodded, unable to speak. George adjusted his glasses and began reading in Marcus's voice, or as close as he could get to it. Eleanor closed her eyes and could almost hear her husband speaking. My dearest Ellie, if you're hearing this, then I'm gone, and I'm so sorry to leave you. I know you're hurting, and I wish I could be there to hold you and tell you everything will be okay. But I need you to be strong now, stronger than you've ever been, because I need to tell you some things I should have said while I was alive. Eleanor felt tears streaming down her face. Across the table, Victoria was staring at the document, her face unreadable. George continued, Ellie, you always told me I was too soft on Victoria. And you were right. I spoiled her, made excuses for her, and in doing so, I failed her as a father. I didn't teach her the value of hard work, of standing on her own, of being grateful for what she has. That's on me, not you. You tried to guide me, but I wouldn't listen. Victoria made a small sound, almost like a gasp, but Derek squeezed her shoulder, keeping her silent. About 6 months ago, something happened that opened my eyes. Victoria came to me asking for money again. This time, it was $75,000. She said it was for her kids' education, for a business opportunity Derek had found. I told her I needed to think about it, that it was a lot of money. Do you know what she said to me, Ellie? Eleanor opened her eyes, looking at her daughter. Victoria was staring at the table now, her face pale. She said, "Dad, thank you. It's not like you're going to take it with you. And let's be honest, Mom doesn't need much. She's always been happy with her little teacher salary and her simple life. When you're gone, all this money is just going to sit there while she reads books and tends her garden. We could actually use it, put it to work. Don't you want to see your grandchildren benefit while you're still alive?" Eleanor felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. She stared at Victoria, who still wouldn't meet her eyes. "Victoria? Is that true? Did you really say that?" Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line. "You're taking it out of context. I didn't mean." "Let him finish," Eleanor said, her voice stronger now, harder. George nodded and continued reading. "That conversation broke my heart, Ellie. Not because she asked for money. I'd given her money 100 times before. But because of what it revealed about how she saw you, saw us, saw our marriage. Your little teacher salary helped put her through college. Your simple life meant you sacrificed your own dreams so our daughter could have hers. You are the strongest, most capable person I've ever known. And the fact that our daughter couldn't see that meant I had failed both of you." Eleanor was sobbing now, but she didn't care. She could feel Marcus in those words, feel his love, his regret, his wisdom. "So I started paying attention, really paying attention. I heard the way Derek talked to you at family dinners, making little comments about your clothes, your opinions, your limited understanding of business and finance. I saw the way Victoria would laugh along with him, or stay silent when she should have defended you. I saw her rolling her eyes when you told stories about your students. I watched her grow into someone I didn't recognize, someone who valued money over character, status over kindness." Derek stood up abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this. This is a character assassination, and I won't." "Sit down, Mr. Morrison," George said, his voice sharp. "This is a legal proceeding, and you will remain seated until it's concluded, or I'll have security escort you out." Derek sat, but his face was twisted with rage. George returned to the letter. "I made the decision then to change my will. I consulted with George, who is not just my lawyer, but my friend, and we crafted something that I hope will teach Victoria the lesson I failed to teach her in life. The $50,000 I'm leaving her is the exact amount she asked me for in that last conversation. It's enough to be meaningful, but not enough to live on for long. I hope it will make her think, make her remember all the times I gave her what she asked for without question, without condition. As for Derek, I'm leaving him nothing, because I know that's what will hurt his pride the most. He's built his entire identity on being a successful, self-made man who needs no one. Well, let him prove it. Let him support my daughter the way he's always claimed he could." Victoria was crying now too, quiet tears that she wiped away quickly as if ashamed to show emotion. "And Ellie, my darling wife, I'm leaving everything to you, because you earned it. Not through manipulation or pressure, but through 47 years of partnership, love, and sacrifice. You worked full-time while raising our daughter. You supported my dreams of starting a business even when it meant eating spaghetti for dinner 5 nights a week. You never complained when I worked late or had to travel for jobs. You turned our house into a home, made me laugh when I was stressed, held me when I was scared. Everything I built because you were beside me. Eleanor pressed her hand to her chest, feeling like her heart might break all over again, but this time, from love rather than grief. But here's the thing, Ellie, and this is the part I need Victoria to hear too. This money, this house, this business, none of it is really about the money. It's about understanding what matters. I'm giving you control of everything, not because I don't love our daughter, but because I love her enough to hope this will wake her up. George paused, looking up at Victoria. This next part is addressed directly to you, Victoria. Victoria's head snapped up, her eyes wide and red-rimmed. Victoria, baby girl, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I spoiled you. Sorry I gave you everything you wanted, instead of teaching you to work for what you need. I'm sorry I let you grow up thinking that money equals love, that your worth is measured in bank accounts and status symbols. Your mother tried to teach you differently, but I undermined her at every turn. That's my failure, not yours. But now you're an adult, and it's time for you to decide what kind of person you want to be. Victoria covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Derek reached for her, but she pulled away from him. I'm giving your mother everything, because I trust her judgment in a way I've come to realize I can't trust yours. Not yet anyway. But I've also included a clause in this will, a condition that I hope will give you both a chance at reconciliation, if you're willing to take it. Eleanor leaned forward, her heart racing. A clause? Marcus hadn't told her about any of this. They'd always shared everything. But this he'd kept secret, knowing perhaps that Eleanor would have talked him out of it, would have insisted on being more generous to their daughter, despite everything. George flipped to another page. Here's the clause Marcus added, and it's quite specific. Eleanor, you are the sole heir to Marcus's estate. But there's a provision regarding Victoria. If, within 1 year of Marcus's death, Victoria can demonstrate genuine reconciliation with her mother, not through words, but through actions, then Eleanor has the option to gift her whatever portion of the estate she deems appropriate. Option? Derek snapped. That's not legally binding. That means Victoria gets nothing unless Eleanor decides to play nice. That's exactly what it means, George confirmed. Marcus trusted Eleanor's judgment completely. He believed that if Victoria truly changed, truly understood what she'd lost and what really matters, then Eleanor would recognize that change and act accordingly. But if Victoria continues down the path she's been on, valuing money over family, status over substance, then Eleanor is under no obligation whatsoever to share anything. Eleanor stared at the lawyer, understanding flooding through her. Marcus had given her a gift far more precious than money. He'd given her the power to decide whether their daughter deserved a second chance. He'd trusted her to know the difference between genuine change and manipulation. But there's more, George said, and Eleanor detected a slight smile at the corners of his mouth. Marcus anticipated that Victoria and Derek might pressure you, might try to manipulate you or make your life difficult in hopes of getting access to the inheritance. So he added another clause. If at any point during that 1 year period, Victoria or Derek threatens you, harasses you, or attempts to contest this will, they forfeit any possibility of ever receiving anything from the estate. Furthermore, if they make your life difficult in any way, you are authorized to use estate funds to obtain restraining orders, hire security, or take any other legal measures necessary to protect yourself. All costs will be charged against Victoria's $50,000 inheritance. Derek shot to his feet again, his face purple with rage. This is extortion. This is manipulation. You're telling me we have to kiss Eleanor's ass for a year, just for the chance that she might give Victoria what should have been hers in the first place. What should have been hers? Eleanor found her voice, and it was stronger than she expected. She stood up, facing her son-in-law across the table. Tell me, Derek, what exactly should have been Victoria's? The money Marcus earned through decades of hard work, the business he built from nothing, the house he bought with his own sweat and blood. He was her father, Derek shouted. She's his daughter. Of course she should inherit. She inherited 50 years of love. Eleanor's voice cracked like a whip through the room. She inherited every advantage, every opportunity, every sacrifice we made for her. Private schools, college, a wedding that cost more than our first house, down payments on 2 different homes, car payments, credit card bailouts. Do you know how much money Marcus gave her over the years? Over $400,000. I know because I went through his records after he died. $400,000, Derek. And not once did she say thank you. Not once did she offer to pay any of it back. She just kept asking for more. Victoria was sobbing openly now. Mom, I didn't know. I didn't realize. You didn't realize because you didn't want to realize, Eleanor said, and her voice was sad now rather than angry. You didn't see me as a person, Victoria. You saw me as an obstacle between you and your father's wallet. You saw my life as simple, my work as just teaching, my existence as something less important than yours, because I wasn't making 6 figures or living in a McMansion. That's not fair, Victoria whispered. Isn't it? Eleanor pulled out her phone, her hands surprisingly steady. Let me read you the text message you sent me 3 days after your father died. 3 days, Victoria. While I was still crying myself to sleep every night. While I was still finding his reading glasses on the nightstand and breaking down because he'd never wear them again. She read the message aloud, her voice shaking only slightly. When she got to the part about Derek being more of a man than you ever were, she looked up at her daughter. Do you remember writing this? Victoria's face crumpled. I was upset. Derek said, he told me that you would probably try to take everything, that we needed to be aggressive, that I'm the enemy, Eleanor finished. Your mother became the enemy the moment your father died, because all you could think about was money. Derek grabbed Victoria's arm. We don't have to listen to this. Come on, honey. We're leaving. We'll contest the will. You'll what? George Porter's voice cut through Derek's bluster. I told you, any contest will fail. Marcus was of sound mind. The will is airtight. And frankly, you're only making things worse for yourself. Every word you speak right now, every action you take, is being noted. And I remind you that any attempt to pressure, threaten, or harass Eleanor will result in Victoria forfeiting everything. Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. For once, he had nothing to say. Victoria pulled her arm away from her husband and stood up. She walked around the table slowly, approaching her mother. Eleanor tensed, unsure what was coming. Mom, Victoria said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry. You're right. About all of it. I became someone I don't even recognize. I said terrible things, thought terrible things, and I don't know how to fix it. Eleanor looked at her daughter. Really looked at her. She saw the little girl who used to bring her dandelions from the yard, the teenager who'd cried in her arms after her first heartbreak, the young woman who'd been so excited to become a mother herself. But she also saw the entitled, bitter woman who'd sent that cruel text message, who'd sat across from her at this table and said nothing while her husband attacked her character. I don't know if you can fix it, Eleanor said honestly. But your father thought you could. He loved you enough to give you this chance. He trusted me to know if you're really changing or just pretending to get access to money. That's a heavy burden he left me, Victoria. I'm not sure I want it. I understand, Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. I don't blame you for hating me. I don't hate you, Eleanor said, and she was surprised to find it was true. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. I'm angry, but I don't hate you. You're my daughter. I carried you for 9 months, raised you for 25 years, loved you every single day of your life. That doesn't just stop. Victoria broke down completely then, her whole body shaking with sobs. She took a step toward Eleanor, arms outstretched, but Eleanor stepped back. She wasn't ready for that yet. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too raw. I need time, Eleanor said quietly. Your father gave us a year. Maybe that's what we both need. Time to figure out who we really are without him here to mediate between us. Derek moved toward Victoria, but she held up her hand, stopping him. No, you need to stay out of this, Derek. This is between me and my mother. But honey, I said no. Victoria's voice was sharp, stronger than Eleanor had heard it in years. You've done enough damage. Actually, you know what? I need you to leave, now. Derek's face went from red to white. You can't be serious. After everything I've done for you. Everything you've done for me. Victoria laughed, but it was a bitter sound with no humor in it. You convinced me to send that horrible text to my mother while she was grieving. You told me she was manipulative, that she was going to steal my inheritance, that I needed to fight her. You've spent years making little comments about her, belittling her, and I let you. Because I don't even know why. Because I was weak. Because I valued the wrong things. Victoria, you're being emotional. You're not thinking clearly. Get out, Derek. Victoria's voice was ice now. Go wait in the car. I need to speak to my mother alone. For a moment, Eleanor thought Derek might refuse. His jaw clenched, his fists tightened, and she saw something almost dangerous flash in his eyes. But George Porter stood up, all 6 feet, 3 inches of him, and said calmly, Mr. Morrison, I think it would be best if you stepped outside. Derek looked around the room, at his wife, at Eleanor, at George, and must have realized he was outnumbered. Fine, he spat. But Victoria, remember what we talked about. Remember our plans, our future. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The silence he left behind was almost deafening. Victoria collapsed back into her chair, covering her face with her hands. Oh God, what have I done? What have I become? Eleanor and George exchanged glances. The lawyer nodded slightly, as if giving Eleanor permission to handle this however she saw fit, then quietly gathered his papers. I'll give you two some privacy. Eleanor, call me if you need anything. Victoria, your $50,000 check will be ready for pickup tomorrow. After he left, Eleanor sat down next to her daughter, not across from her anymore, but beside her. She didn't touch her, but she was close enough that Victoria could feel her presence. Talk to me, Eleanor said. And I mean really talk to me. Not what you think I want to hear, not what Derek told you to say. Tell me what's really going on. Victoria was silent for a long moment, her hands still covering her face. When she finally spoke, her voice was muffled and broken. I don't know when it started. Maybe when I got married, maybe before that. But somewhere along the way, I started measuring my worth by what I had instead of who I was. Derek's friends, their wives, they all have these huge houses and expensive cars and designer everything. And I wanted that too. I wanted people to look at me and think I was successful, important. You're a marriage and family therapist, Eleanor said. You have a doctorate. You help people for a living. That's not successful enough? It should be, Victoria said, finally lowering her hands. Her eyes were swollen and red. God, it should be. But Derek would make comments about how I'd never make real money in private practice. How I should have gone into psychiatry so I could prescribe medications and charge more. He'd compare me to his brother's wife who's a corporate lawyer making $300,000 a year. And Dad would give us money whenever we asked. So I never had to face the reality that we were living beyond our means. Derek makes good money in real estate, Eleanor said, trying to understand. He's mortgaged to the hilt, Victoria admitted. We both are. The house, the cars, the club membership, the kids' private school, it's all on credit. We're drowning, Mom. We have almost $400,000 in debt. When Dad died, I convinced myself that you didn't really need the money, that you'd be fine with your pension and Social Security, and that we needed it more. Derek kept saying it, and I wanted to believe it. Eleanor felt a wave of sadness wash over her. Oh, Victoria. I know, Victoria whispered. I know how terrible that sounds. My father just died, and all I could think about was money. What kind of person does that? What kind of daughter? A scared one, Eleanor said quietly. The desperate one. But also a spoiled one who never learned to live within her means, or to say no to the things she couldn't afford. Victoria flinched, but she nodded. You're right. You're absolutely right. And that text message I sent you, Mom, I will regret that for the rest of my life. I was sitting there with Derek, and he was typing out what he thought I should say, and I just hit send. I didn't even think about how cruel it was. How much it would hurt you. I was so caught up in protecting what I thought I deserved that I forgot about basic human decency. My husband is more of a man than you ever were, Eleanor quoted softly. Do you know how much that hurt? Your father was the kindest, most generous man I ever knew. He wasn't perfect. He spoiled you too much, and he should have made you more independent. But he was good. He was so good, Victoria. And you reduced him to a wallet, and me to an obstacle. I know, Victoria sobbed. I know, and I hate myself for it. I've been hating myself since the moment I sent it. But I was too proud to admit I was wrong. And then Derek kept pushing, kept saying we had to be strong, had to fight for what was rightfully ours. And I just went along with it. Eleanor took a deep breath. Your father left you a way out. He gave you a year to prove that you've changed, that you understand what really matters. But Victoria, I need you to hear me clearly. I will not be manipulated. I will not be played. If you're doing this just to get money, I will know, and you will get nothing. I don't want the money, Victoria said, and Eleanor was surprised to hear conviction in her voice. I mean, yes, we need it desperately, but I don't want it if it means losing you. I already lost Dad. I can't lose you too. Then what are you going to do? Eleanor asked. Because right now, you have a husband who's pressuring you, who's expecting you to play nice with me for a year so he can get his hands on your father's money. How are you going to handle that? Victoria was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that shocked Eleanor to her core. I'm going to leave him. What? I'm going to leave Derek, Victoria repeated, her voice growing stronger. I should have done it years ago. He's not a good man, Mom. He's controlling and manipulative, and he's turned me into someone I despise. Being with him is it's like slowly drowning and not even realizing you're underwater until someone throws you a lifeline. Eleanor studied her daughter carefully. This is a big decision, Victoria. Don't make it because you think it's what I want to hear. I'm not, Victoria insisted. I'm making it because sitting here, listening to Dad's letter, seeing the disgust in your eyes when you looked at me, it woke me up. Really woke me up. I've been sleepwalking through my life, letting Derek make all the decisions, going along with his values instead of remembering my own. I became complicit in my own misery and in hurting the people I love. What about your children? Eleanor asked. Emma and James? At the mention of her grandchildren, Victoria's face softened. They're 12 and 14 now, old enough to understand some of what's going on. And honestly, Mom, they need to see me stand up for myself. They need to see that I can be strong, that I won't just accept being treated poorly. What kind of example am I setting if I stay with a man who treats their grandmother with contempt? Eleanor felt something shift in her chest. Hope, maybe, or the tiniest beginning of forgiveness. Your father would be proud to hear you say that. Would he? Victoria's voice broke. Because I feel like I failed him so completely. He spent his whole life taking care of me, and I repaid him by being greedy and selfish. He also spent his whole life enabling you, Eleanor said honestly. We both need to own our parts in this, Victoria. Your father and I should have let you struggle more, should have let you face consequences instead of always bailing you out. We didn't do you any favors by making life so easy. Victoria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. So what happens now? Do we try to rebuild what we had? Eleanor shook her head slowly. No, we can't rebuild what we had, because what we had was broken. Your father saw that, even if we didn't. But we can build something new, something better. Something based on honesty and respect, instead of obligation and enabling. I want that, Victoria said. More than anything, I want that. But I don't know where to start. Eleanor stood up, gathering her purse. You start by going home and having a hard conversation with Derek. You start by taking responsibility for your debts and your choices. You start by teaching your children what your father tried to teach you. That character matters more than possessions. That family is more important than status. That love can't be measured in dollars. And us? Victoria asked, standing too. What about us? I need time, Eleanor said again. Your father gave us a year. But I can't promise you anything, Victoria. I can't promise that I'll ever fully forgive you for that text message. Or for the way you've treated me over the past few years. I can't promise that I'll share any of your father's estate with you, even if you do everything right. But I can promise that I'll be honest with you. I'll watch what you do, not what you say. And if you genuinely change, if you become the person your father hoped you could be, then maybe we can find our way back to each other. Victoria nodded, tears streaming down her face again. That's more than I deserve. Thank you, Mom. Eleanor walked to the door, then paused. She turned back to her daughter. Victoria, I want you to know something. Your father's letter, he wasn't just talking to you. He was talking to me too. He was reminding me that people can change, that it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. He was asking me to give you a chance, but also to be strong enough to recognize the difference between real change and manipulation. That's his gift to both of us. The opportunity to be better than we were. I won't waste it, Victoria promised. I swear to you, I won't. Eleanor nodded and left the room. She walked through the law office, past the receptionist, out into the bright afternoon sunshine. She stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the warmth soak into her bones. She felt exhausted, wrung out, but also somehow lighter than she had in months. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Victoria. Eleanor almost didn't look at it, afraid of what she might find, but curiosity won out. Mom, I just told Derek I want a separation. He's furious, but I'm not backing down. I'm taking the kids to my friend Sarah's house for a few days while we figure things out. I'm also canceling the club membership and putting our house on the market. We need to downsize to live within our actual means. I know this doesn't fix what I did, but it's a start. I love you. Eleanor stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, I'm proud of you for taking these steps. Call me when you're settled at Sarah's. We can talk more then. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The weeks that followed were strange and difficult. True to her word, Victoria separated from Derek, moved with the kids into a modest apartment, and put her house on the market. The divorce process was ugly. Derek fought everything, accused Victoria of being brainwashed by her mother, threatened to drain their joint accounts. But Victoria stood firm, and Eleanor watched from a distance, ready to help if asked, but not inserting herself into the situation. Victoria started coming by for coffee every Saturday morning. At first, the conversations were awkward and stilted, both of them dancing around the hurt that still lingered. But slowly, carefully, they began to rebuild. Victoria told her mother about the therapy she'd started, about the financial counselor she was working with, about the long conversations she was having with Emma and James, about values and priorities. James asked me why we were moving to a smaller place, Victoria told Eleanor one Saturday morning. He said his friends at school would make fun of him. And I realized, I've been teaching my kids the exact same toxic values that Derek taught me. What did you tell him? Eleanor asked, pouring them both more coffee. I told him the truth, that we'd been living beyond our means, that Grandpa's death made me realize I'd lost sight of what was important, and that having a fancy house and expensive things doesn't make you a good person. He didn't like hearing it, but he needed to. Eleanor smiled. Your father would have approved of that answer. As the months passed, Eleanor began to see genuine change in her daughter. Victoria sold most of her designer clothes and donated the money to charity. She left her private practice and took a job at a community mental health center, working with low-income families. She brought Emma and James to volunteer at a homeless shelter every other weekend. She stopped asking for help and started offering it, calling to check on Eleanor, helping her with yard work, organizing Marcus's belongings with compassion and care instead of resentment. I found Dad's old tool belt today, Victoria told her mother one afternoon as they sorted through the garage. I remember when he'd come home from work sites, and I'd run to hug him, even though he was covered in sawdust. When did I forget that? When did I start caring more about what he could buy me than who he was? You were young, Eleanor said gently, and your father and I made it easy for you to take things for granted. That doesn't excuse it, Victoria said, but I'm trying to do better. For my kids, for myself, for Dad's memory. 8 months into the year Marcus had given them, Eleanor made a decision. She called George Porter and asked him to draw up some documents. Then she invited Victoria over for dinner. A real dinner, the kind they used to have before everything fell apart. After they'd eaten and cleaned up, after Emma and James had gone home with Victoria, Eleanor pulled out an envelope. Your father's year isn't up yet, Eleanor said, but I've made a decision, and I want you to know what it is. Victoria's face went pale. Mom, whatever you've decided, I understand. I don't expect— Hush, Eleanor said. Let me finish. I've been watching you these past 8 months. I've seen you change your life, seen you stand up to Derek, seen you teach your children better values. I've seen you working at the community center for half what you used to make. I've seen you volunteering, struggling, trying, and I believe you. I believe the change is real. Tears welled up in Victoria's eyes. Thank you, that means everything to me. I'm not giving you half the estate. Eleanor continued, and I'm not giving you enough to solve all your financial problems. Your father wanted you to learn to stand on your own, and I agree with him. Victoria nodded. I understand, but I am going to give you $100,000. 50,000 to pay off your highest interest debts, and 50,000 to put in trust for Emma and James's education, not their private school tuition, but their college funds. Money they can't touch until they're 18, and only if they maintain good grades and demonstrate good character. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. Mom, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet. There are conditions. You continue therapy. You continue working at the community center for at least 2 more years. You teach your children about money, about values, about what really matters. And you keep building this relationship with me. Honestly, authentically, not because you want something from me, but because we're family. Yes, Victoria said immediately. Yes to all of it. I promise. And one more thing, Eleanor said, her voice softer now. Every year on your father's birthday, we spend the day together, doing something he would have loved. Maybe volunteering at Habitat for Humanity. Maybe taking your kids to the park he used to take you to. Maybe just sitting in his favorite chair and telling stories about him. I need to know that you remember him, not for his money, but for who he was. I'd like that, Victoria whispered. I'd really like that. Eleanor handed her daughter the envelope. Your father gave us a gift, you know. Not the money, the chance to choose who we wanted to be. He could have just split everything down the middle and let us figure it out. But he knew us both better than that. He knew I needed to be strong enough to hold firm, and you needed to be brave enough to change. He orchestrated this entire thing from beyond the grave because he loved us that much. Victoria opened the envelope, saw the documents inside, and started crying again. But this time they were different tears. Tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. I miss him so much, Victoria said. So do I, Eleanor replied. Every single day. They sat together in Marcus's favorite chair, both of them somehow fitting, and cried for the man they'd loved, the man who'd known them better than they knew themselves, the man who'd found a way to teach them both one last lesson, even after he was gone. 3 months later, on what would have been Marcus's 75th birthday, Eleanor and Victoria worked side by side at a Habitat for Humanity build site. Emma and James were there too, learning to swing hammers and measure boards. As Eleanor watched her daughter laughing with the other volunteers, saw her grandchildren working hard without complaining about their clothes getting dirty, she felt something she hadn't felt since the day she'd opened that cruel text message. She felt peace. That night, back at home, Eleanor sat in Marcus's chair and pulled out the letter George Porter had given her. A second letter, this one meant only for her, to be opened 1 year after Marcus's death. My darling Ellie, it read. If you're reading this, a year has passed. I hope it was a good year, despite the grief. I hope you found your strength, made your decision about Victoria, and found some peace in it all. I know I put a heavy burden on you, and I'm sorry for that. But I also know that you're the strongest person I've ever known, and you were the only one who could do this right. I trust you completely, whatever you decided. I love you, Ellie. I will always love you. Thank you for giving me the best 47 years a man could ask for. Give Victoria a hug from me if she's earned it. And remember, it was never about the money. It was always about the love. Always. Marcus. Eleanor folded the letter carefully, pressed it to her heart, and smiled through her tears. It was never about the money. It was always about the love.